Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to another episode of Currency Cloud's Superhero Spotlight Series. I'll be your host, Brady Burkett, and today we have Chris Bixby with Sezzle. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks, Brady. Good to be here virtually, and looking forward to hopefully getting together at some point soon.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you on. We had your colleague Killian on yesterday, who gave a nice background of Sezzle and a little bit more about the buy now, pay later space. So folks, definitely go check out that recorded episode now. Killian was on yesterday with Scott. But Chris, we're going to talk about some different things in the space. So first off, to introduce Sezzle to our listeners, you guys just announced a big partnership with Target, so congratulations on that. And I think to set the tone for the conversation, we want to talk about loyalty today.
Yeah, thanks for that. The Target announcement, a three-year deal with them, has been a long time in the making, and super excited that kind of hit the wire, and we've been able to announce that. So also Killian is just a spectacular person, a great CTO, a good friend, and he also speaks very highly of Currency Cloud, and kind of as we've been looking at some of our international expansion, the role that you guys have played. So thanks for having him on, and yeah, let's jump into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have you as our thought leader in the buy now, pay later space, Chris. So you and I have spoken in the past, right? And I think you have a view of the buy now, pay later space and the timeline of how the market's evolving. You say we're now in the second quarter. To use a sports analogy, I guess if we want to make it a buy now, pay later analogy, you could say we're in like the second payment of the four, right? But to keep with the sports analogy, can you talk us through where buy now, pay later's been and where it's headed?
Yeah, thanks. I'll try to limit the sports analogies, but I've got a hockey stick in the background, so we're probably already leading in that direction. Real quick, Chris Bixby, VP of Growth at Sezzle. We're a purpose-driven digital payments company. That's the only certified B Corp in fintech. Something that's very proud of, and to be a really mission-driven, make sure we're putting our consumer first. Some of the things that I hope we talk about around loyalty will really kind of come back to that whole purpose-driven approach, which again really resonates with our consumers as well as our retailers that we've been signing up on our platform. A little scary to think of as a buy now, pay later thought leader. I've only been in the business for about 2 years. At the same time, that's about half the time. That's about 50% of the time that buy now, pay later has been in the U.S. So it's a rapidly emerging payment technology, a rapidly emerging payment type in the U.S. But started abroad in both Australia, Brazil, the Nordics, et cetera. And we've just seen phenomenal growth. I think as you alluded to, I would say we are in the second quarter. And the way I say that, and I kind of look at historical and where we're going, is that first quarter was really seeing the benefits from an e-commerce platform. So again, whether it was all the growth that we saw and retailers saw in Australia or in Europe, the benefits to e-commerce is real. And so the real metrics that buy now, pay later is driven is AOV lift, so average order values and basket sizes. And that because it allows a consumer to budget their purchases, break it up into installments, and basically, have a better use of their cash today to buy what they want or need, and then pay over time. So that first quarter was all about the metrics. I think that AOV lift was just, phenomenal. In most cases, it's averaging about 30% AOV lifts. You tell that to the average marketer or e-commerce expert, and they're just blown away by it. The other metrics that we see in that category are, around conversion rates, increase in conversion rates, as well as frequency of purchase and how often the consumer comes back to purchase. And I think that was one. Everyone just got super excited. We saw tremendous growth through providing our platform, across multiple different businesses and different categories. I think where we're in right now is that kind of second quarter, and it's the next level of kind of understanding, what the benefit of buy now, pay later is, and the benefit of payments in general for retailers. And so where it's gone to and where it's at today is really about the net new customer. And so AOV lifts, or maybe the current customer you had, or it could be a net new customer. but essentially increasing the basket size of the users coming in. Today, it's about how do I drive a new customer to my platform? And that can come through different ways. That can come just through, there's been way more search, way more traffic, online shopping, especially through COVID. That was a massive sea change, in the industry and for buy now, pay later. So there's new traffic coming to your website. And a lot of that is younger, consumers looking and basically perusing multiple different e-commerce platforms. So having a payment option, navigates, it helps them. And then the other aspect of net new consumers is that it's a younger generation. So it's typically Gen Z and millennial. 75% of our user base is Gen Z or millennial. About 25% is Gen Z, which would be under the age of 25. And they're just shopping and behaving differently. And then the last aspect of net new is really the marketing spend and drivers and traffic that buy now, pay laters can provide. So we have over 2.5 million active, about 6 million users on our platform or have signed up with our platform. We can activate those to our retail partners, and that's really important in terms of a net new traffic driver. So we're still in the beginning. It's only been 2 years, 4 years in the US, I think, in terms of this true buy now, pay later experience. So I think we've got a long ways to go, but yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah, and a couple points there you mentioned is seeing buy now, pay later as a payment type, not just a credit option, which I think is a really interesting concept for merchants looking at their customer experience. And again, you mentioned, it's a younger user base. So another interesting aspect of that is kind of leveraging both the credit and the payment type as a digital native way to access those new customers and provide them credit. So what's the third quarter going to look like?
Well, you set it up perfectly, Brady. You must be a coach, really. You're setting up the game plan here. No, I mean, honestly, we've talked about this before, but I do think it's going to be loyalty marketing. I think, and it's not in the traditional sense where, the buy now, pay later is going to be the, loyalty marketing program, but I think it's going to be a lot more about how retailers incorporate payments, specifically, whether it's Sezzle or others in buy now, pay later installment payments, really into their lifecycle marketing and loyalty journeys. And so, we've seen this is kind of, I don't know where this comes from, but, we've seen also the progression of, loyalty programs from, points to, cash back, to rewards programs, to even things like buy one, give one, whether that's, a purpose driven, like a Tom's program, or a buy one, give one that's more like to a friend, in terms of rewards and getting them onto the platform. I think everyone is still trying to figure out loyalty in general, in terms of how do you engage, whether it's a new customer, a net new customer, or your existing customer base in a world that's so rapidly changing. I mean, the ability for consumers to find and identify new brands that they love and like, whether it's on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, digital marketing, it's never been more than today, especially as we've seen that shift, from offline to online, through COVID. It's come back way faster than I think, we thought it might, which is good to see in terms of the brick and mortar retailers. But, the discovery that's available right now, and I would say brand loyalty is always like a challenge at this point. I think, we've seen it with Bland's. No offense to anyone that, has worked at a Bland. A Bland is a direct to consumer company that has a very similar, direct to market approach, brand experience. We've seen that with digitally native brands' ability to create customer bases very, very quickly with great products. But then we've seen very quickly afterwards competitors come into the market. And so it's never been, easier to create a brand. It's never been easier to get eyeballs, but it's never been harder to, attract and retain. And so I think all things loyalty are going to be continue to shift, continue to be refined. And so I personally really do see, payments as a very, important aspect of incorporating into a loyalty strategy.
Yeah, I think there's a number of ways that I kind of want to go with the conversation now. But when you think about those credit card loyalty programs, oftentimes, merchants can have a co-brand, but it really comes down to loyalty with like the issuing bank almost, more than the merchant, right? So in this scenario, the credit card's the payment type, the issuing bank's the lender, and the co-brand is the merchant, right? So in buy now, pay later, like how are those things going to be different in your view? And then, touching on that, how will things be better or worse for all those players, whether it's the credit provider, the payment type, the consumer, the merchant? I know it's a big question, but just imagining that transformation. How do things be different?
I think you brought in this idea of retailer credit cards and what they've done with loyalty programs and point systems and 5% cash backs, et cetera. They've done it really well. I'd say at the end of the day, they've done it really well. They're extremely profitable, both for the merchants that are working with the co-branded issuers, as well as for the banks. And what they've been able to do is they've been able to, because they're so profitable, really incorporate that into the cash back, incentives and rewards. Shop at our store and get 5% off. Shop somewhere else and get 1%, cash back or whatever that is. And so there's almost a built-in, there's built-in functionality as part of that, loyalty program to then allow, customers, okay, I'm going to increase frequency. I'm going to give them benefits. I'm going to give the consumer things that they value based on shopping at my store. And then there's another aspect of kind of the rev share that's shared, when you shop at other stores, that basically comes back to the retailer, which is why they're okay with, them shopping at additional or other retailers. I think the value there is going to continue to be, pushed. We saw the growth in, co-brand and retailer cards, primarily when buy now, pay later wasn't a thing. Mobile apps, even in general, whether it's, mobile wallets, were very limited at the time. I mean, those have just come on in the last, few years. And so there's now so much demand for different payment types. I mean, we look at like preferred method of payment. It's primarily debit card at this point. And that's a whole, I'm sure Killian went into all the different reasons of why that is, and people are rejecting credit cards. But I think the retailer card programs are ultimately going to get challenged around their rewards program. The other thing that's kind of interesting, and not to go too into it, but rewards programs are typically funded by the least creditworthy people that are in the card programs. And so it's the consumer that, may have gotten into the program, but then basically has to have a revolving balance. And so is ultimately paying it, interest on their credit card. I think it's a really interesting, psychological, or, like thing to think about and kind of how this all fits together. I think at the end of the day, it's really going to be, how does it all fit to be the best experience for the consumer? We really believe that consumers should have credit cards. We do believe that ultimately, to build credit's really important. To have the ability to have a revolving credit facility is really important. And so we really do support, co-branded card programs, retailer programs. At the same time, we've seen the consumer push back, and we've seen the consumer go to these other payment methods, and we want to help them along in that journey. And so where I think the retailer comes in is, how can the retailer help their consumer along in the journey? And so how can the retailer be an advocate, a partner? How can they have their back of a new, consumer that comes into their, fold, and not pushing, but kind of pulling them in a way that's like, hey, this is the right thing for you. This is the right product for you. Maybe that's buy now, pay later. Maybe that's their retailer card. But how do we bring in the right card at the right time, or the right payment experience for our consumer? That's where I think that third quarter is going to go in terms of, the buy now, pay later piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you guys are rolling out a product called Sezzle Spend to address the space. So if you could touch on what you're doing there for our viewers today, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks. So Sezzle Spend is our, it's hard to say. It's a pseudo rewards product. But really what Sezzle Spend is it's saying that consumers can basically get either a discount today or a very tangible discount on a future payment if they select Sezzle as a payment option, based on a retailer. And so what Sezzle Spend does is for example, you can go shop $10, get $10 off, and I'm not sure what's running right now. So pick our retailer, GameStop. So you can get $10 off if you shop today at GameStop, if you use Sezzle as a payment method, or alternatively, you can get $10 to spend at any future retailer, if you use Sezzle as a payment option, if you shop it today. And what we actually see, we just fortuitously ran a survey with about 1,300 customers, and we saw that kind of obviously, but at the same time, I think it's relevant to bring up that 90% of consumers want the discount today versus sometime in the future. And so where we look at Sezzle Spend, it's also very tangible. So it's a dollar amount, it's associated with a purchase, it's associated with the checkout. And we believe that's a much more tangible and basically understandable way to give a reward, discount, loyalty to a consumer that shops with a retailer with Sezzle, as opposed to a program that is either points driven, spend driven, which we believe and I've seen can potentially be confusing. It doesn't always either put also the retailer in the best seat, because the retailer doesn't know where they fit into the puzzle. And so where we see Sezzle Spend going is, how do we do better co-branded marketing programs with our retailers, and follow-up messaging, and really good life cycle marketing to basically advertise and promote a discount through a payment option that allows a consumer to get what they want today and actually achieve like true discounting. That's where we think it's going to be really interesting, and it already has been in terms of rolling this out with our merchant partners.
And I think one aspect there that's worth touching on is just how it feeds back into Sezzle's mission, right? Is to align with the consumer, and provide them the clarity, the simplicity, to be able to use those rewards rather than get caught up in some reward scheme that requires them to spend money that they might not otherwise want to or should. So that's a really interesting aspect as well. So loyalty and life cycle marketing is looking ahead at the third quarter, right? That's the future. That's what Sezzle is going to think about with your merchants moving forward. So Chris, at the risk of looking a little bit further down the road, things can change, but what is the next? What's the fourth quarter, and how is this game going to wrap up?
Well, we'll see, and we'll see how long I think the third quarter is going to last. I think it's going to last a little, but this space evolves so quickly. It's just incredible. I think one data point or one survey stat I'll bring in, which kind of ties this together, is when we ask the consumers or our consumers in that survey, what's most important to you in terms of an e-tail experience or e-commerce experience, and we listed several different things. The top of the list was payments, immediately followed by price point, and then things like ease of navigation, brand, and then product selection. And so I think, again, that's our consumer base, right? That's 1,300 users that have used Sezzle. Obviously, payments is a thing. 80% of our users are subprime or prime to be. So I think they're, in terms of the mind share, it's a pretty big mind share, from our user base. At the same time, it shows you that there's still, 80% of the U.S. living paycheck to paycheck. So that's a big portion of the of the population that is thinking about payments. It's a big part of their life. And they see that, and they basically resonates with them, how the retailer, actually provides it. And so more likely to recommend a store to a friend, more likely to shop more often, and then also even more likely to feel that the brand represents their values. And I think that's a very important kind of function of this is, and I think in the same way, like the reason people get, a red card, or, different retailer cards is because they really believe that the brand represents them. The card that they want in their wallet really represents them. And I think, where we've seen is like Sezzle really represents our consumer, and as a reflection, whether it's B Corp, mission driven, the ability to help them build credit, it really reflects our consumer. So I think where we see this loyalty piece is the ability to weave that into marketing. And then I think this next quarter is all going to be about how do we incorporate all these things together. I mean, there's an ethos or ecosystem out there that, it's still share of checkout, right? Like that's the ecosystem. It's how do you pay when you get to checkout, whether it's, credit, debit, payment options, buy now, pay later. And I think where we see it is like, again, like that consumer might be in a different place today than they are tomorrow, or they might be in a different place tomorrow than they are today. And so there might be different reasons to believe in using a buy now, pay later versus a card, depending on the life cycle of the customer, the size of the wallet, the basket. And so where I see this going is really doing, I'd say, more of a personalization and customized approach to presentment and incorporating this into an overall credit strategy and payment strategy. So again, presenting the right solutions at the right time to the right consumer is going to be a really important aspect of this. Again, whether it's our product, whether it's another product, whether it's a long-term installment option, so whether it's a monthly payment, that's why we did, we've done partnerships there to be able to provide our retailers a long-term installment that they can offer to their consumers. That's where I think it's going to get really interesting. I'm a data marketing. My whole background's been in marketing and I guess some in finance, but I really see that kind of data and understanding the consumer to provide ultimately the best payment option or credit option as part of that kind of fourth quarter, if you will, of where buy now, pay later is going.
Yeah, and the picture you're really painting too is it's buy now, pay later is really a digitally native payment option and a digitally native credit option, right? That can use all of this data to embed like the best experience for the merchant, the best experience for the customer, rather than just taking the analog version and applying it to an online checkout page. Buy now, pay later is just an embedded version of payments, credit, customer loyalty, and a way to capture all of this at the checkout page and delight the customer and provide real value to the merchant.
Couldn't have said it better. No, I think you really captured it. And I think that's where we think this is going. I think that's why we're so, personally passionate about it. I think it's a really fascinating space. Obviously, I love it. I've been in it, just a very short amount of time. But the rapid growth and, the acceleration through COVID and, other just mega trends basically driving this has been the most interesting aspect. And I think also the retailer adoption has been way faster than, again, I think we had even initially predicted, and again, kind of exemplified by, a target 3-year commitment. It's those kind of things that you're like, wow, this is rapidly growing, here to stay. And I think as we think about, loyalty, lifecycle marketing, how to incorporate that into retailer plans, and then this overall credit journey, I think that's where it frankly gets really exciting. And, hopefully we can really, make a difference in our users' lives, because payments are important and, credit's important, as they shop retailers and as they use us as a product. So no, this has been really fun to join, and I think you've covered it really nicely.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been great to have you on, Chris. Congrats again on the Target news. How can folks get in touch with you before we sign off here?
Sure. I'm all over LinkedIn always, so that's the easiest place to hit me up, or one of the easier places to hit me up. And then chris.bixby@sezzle.com. So love to chat. Always thinking about new and exciting things. Please reach out, and thanks again for the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.